Good evening. With today's theme of entropy, chaos, and order, I'm sure a lot of aspects of chaos come to mind. Chaos at home, at work, at school, the world we live in. But I'd like to emphasize another form of significant chaos, the mental kind, specifically the kind of chaos that can arise from being neurodivergent. And also that whatever form we may experience it in, neurodivergency and the push and pull of both chaos and order are intrinsically tied. But first, what is neurodivergency? Neurodivergency is the idea that people think and behave in ways in the world in ways that are different from each other. And while there is no right way of thinking, the term neurotypical can describe someone who processes information in ways that are typical within their culture, while the term neurodivergent describes someone who may think or behave in ways that are different than others. For a point of reference, being neurotypical is kind of characterized by a couple different things. So, for example, this can be like reaching developmental milestones at the same time as other children, having social skills similar to one's peers, being able to focus for prolonged periods of time, or being able to adapt to changes in routine pretty easily. And that definition of neurotypical is all dependent and relative on other people, on the people that make up the norm. And you also don't need all of those characteristics to identify as neurotypical, but it's just a good starting point to understanding this. And neurotypical, conversely, this can be people who have difficulties with the characteristics I just mentioned. And those difficulties, or those divergences from the norm, are typically encompassed by a couple different conditions. So, just for example, this can be stuff like ADHD, which is very generally a diagnosis characterized by hyperactivity, high levels of energy, maybe difficulty with focus. Autism, which again, very generally speaking, is where people may process sensory information a little differently and may have difficulties with social aspects and reading social cues, or also stuff like learning disabilities, an example being dyslexia, which varies someone's ability to read. And this, by all means, is not an exhaustive list. There are so many more, but these are just probably a couple terms you're familiar with, all of which fall under that general umbrella term of neurodivergency. And I also have to emphasize that neurodivergency is not a diagnostic or medical term. It's an overall nice general term that many people can identify with, characterized by differences in, like I said, places like social interaction, speech, and focus. Now, neurodivergency. It can really seem like, and I'll go through this a bunch, a push and pull of chaos and stability. This intricate dance, if you will, between seemingly uncontrollable mental chaos and the genuine need for stability and organization. One example can be overstimulation. And this is a frequently mentioned symptom within neurodivergency, and it describes when someone feels overwhelmed by sensory input around them. And I'd like to emphasize that it's more than an emotional outburst or a tantrum. It's instead a glimpse into a world where sensory overload and emotions meet, leading to feeling out of control with yourself. And that line between keeping order or feeling fine and chaos, feeling overwhelmed or overstimulated, can be extremely thin. A single trigger can lead to someone being in a state of overload. And that can literally be anything ranging from loud noises, bright lights, certain textures, changes in plans, crowded spaces, literally anything. And then all of that can manifest into stuff like panic attacks, difficulty sleeping, restlessness, difficulty making decisions, meltdowns. I don't think I can overstate the chaos involved with being out of control with your body and mind. And then another example, again, executive dysfunction, which describes the challenge for many neurodivergent people to form skills like time management, planning, starting tasks, or regulating emotions. This is another prime example of feeling out of control. You can, with executive function, you can know you have to do something, want to do it. It could literally be like a hobby you enjoy, but to still be unable to force yourself to perform the task is an indescribable feeling of chaos and spiraling. And then, of course, with entropy, there's the other side of the coin, where all of that chaos and lack of order can lead to the search for or creation of new rules in an attempt to find stability and safety. And I mean, that's why schedules and structures are so emphasized in managing neurodivergency. The insistence on rituals and routines, on sameness from day-to-day life, because maybe we can't count on ourselves to remember to do tasks that seem so easy for others. and we need cues from our environment to remind us. But even then, that is not a perfect solution. Because while we need rigidity and structure to be able to accomplish things, at the same time we have trouble sticking to those schedules and routines. And then the demands of the corporate world or school can be relentless, and if we fall behind on our tasks, that leads to another cycle of self-criticism and overcorrection. And I've seen this mentioned a lot in the context of maybe ADHD or executive dysfunction, for example, where schedules can be too rigid and difficult to follow, but are simultaneously incredibly important to improve focus and accomplish tasks. And those two experiences, the aversion to schedules and their genuine helpfulness, are really difficult to integrate as a neurodivergent person. Now, I've pointed out a lot of unpleasant and uncomfortable feelings and aspects of neurodivergency, and presented it as this whirlwind of chaos and then an overcorrection and a pressing need of order. And to some extent, I believe we can come to terms with this chaos as an aspect of our lives as neurodivergent people. And that acceptance can be helpful in understanding and normalizing that the ways in which you think or behave are not wrong, even if schools or workplaces may say otherwise, leading you to come to a place where you don't feel the need to stifle your emotions. But on the other hand, that also does not negate the fact that being neurodivergent is very difficult, and it may be the most difficult part of someone's lives. It can even be considered a disability for some. And then that again brings us to the other side of the coin when we embrace or accept order, which is when we embrace chaos, searching for order. Because oftentimes we need that stability. We need to create some form of order amidst the chaos of our brains. And all over the internet and in real life, neurodivergent people have shared useful, if unconventional, strategies that help them to feel calm, safe, and reduce overwhelm. And this can be literally anything from wearing noise-canceling headphones, having safety movies and food and clothes, using weighted blankets, or batching tasks together. All are important and infinite lists of accommodations. And when we can build awareness of our signs of overwhelm or overstimulation, take proactive measures to improve our sensory environment so that we lessen the risk of overstimulation, and find our safety objects and activities, we can make things easier for ourselves, because we deserve to make things easier for ourselves. So, finally, where does this bring us? I certainly can't tell you what to do with your brain, and that is, again, my point, that you know your brain the best. You know your limits and your needs the best out of anyone. And you know when to draw the line between accepting the chaos, accepting that some things are a part of your life, and between choosing to change some of it. And whether that in which you need are accommodations or professional support, or something smaller like adjusting your habits or physical environment so that you lessen the risk of sensory overwhelm, all of that is worth doing to organize or at least alleviate some of the chaos we experience. And to also do so without beating ourselves up too much when the chaos does take over, because even if we don't ever achieve absolute order or get to live up to the standards that neurotypicals have set, we can still find some stability or comfort amidst the chaos. Because sometimes stability and safety is the best thing you can reach for. Thank you.